Hi, I'm Vanessa from speakenglishwithvanessa.com. Do you make these common mistakes in English? Let's talk about it. Have you ever felt afraid to make a mistake when you're speaking in English? What happens if you make a mistake? Other people will say, "What? What did you say?" Maybe you will miss out on a friendship, or you won't seem professional at work and your heart will start beating. You might start sweating. It's a terrible feeling. I think that because of school, we are all brought up with the idea that mistakes should be avoided at all costs. Mistakes are terrible. But do you know what? The reality is that when you learn anything new, a language, when you're learning English, mistakes are inevitable. Inevitable is a wonderful word that means unavoidable. You will definitely make a mistake in English because you're an English learner. And a little secret, I make mistakes in English too. So what I would like you to do, even though we are talking about common mistakes today, I would like you to take a deep breath with me. Because when you make a mistake in English, this means that you are getting out of your comfort zone. This is excellent. It means that you are learning and progressing, and sometimes making a mistake is a great way to learn. So I hope that you will not fear making mistakes, but instead you will feel confident that making mistakes means that you are trying something new that you've never done before, that you are having courage to get outside your comfort zone. So congratulations, you are doing something challenging, you're learning something new, and making mistakes is part of that. And to help you today, sometimes it's nice to learn from other people's mistakes. I would like to share with you 11 common mistakes in English that my students often make. These are some grammar mistakes, vocabulary mistakes, pronunciation mistakes, and maybe you make these mistakes too. Of course, it's not the end of the world, but you are here because you want to level up your English. So I hope that these mistakes and corrections will help you. To help you with this lesson as well, I have created a free PDF worksheet. In this worksheet, I will give you all of the mistakes, the corrections, sample sentences, some tips and ideas about how to avoid them, and what happens if you accidentally make those mistakes. And also at the end of the worksheet, you will answer Vanessa's challenge question to help you use what you have learned in this lesson. So don't forget to download the free PDF worksheet. There is a link in the description. Just for you, it is my gift. All right, let's go on to learn these 11 common mistakes that I often hear my English students make. The first couple mistakes are grammar mistakes, then we'll talk about vocabulary mistakes, and finally some common pronunciation mistakes. And you know what? If you make these mistakes even after this video, I want you to take a deep breath and to realize that you are doing something amazing. You are learning a new language, you are getting outside of your comfort zone. You're awesome. All right, let's start by talking about some common grammar mistakes. Mistake number 1, I went there by bus. I went there by car. I went there by plane. Okay, so grammatically in a textbook, they would say this is okay. But do you know what? In daily conversation, we rarely use by plus transportation. I went there by car, by bus, by plane, by taxi. It feels a little bit like textbook English or classroom English. Instead, we're more likely to use the verb take. I took a bus. I took a train. I took a flight. I took the plane. With driving, because you're the one who is in control, we often just say drive. I drove to my friend's house. We drove to the beach. That's in the past tense, to drive, drove. But here we're more likely to use a verb instead of a by phrase. So take a look at this sentence. How can we change it to make it be a little bit more natural? We're going to Canada by plane next week. You see that phrase by plane, and now you know it's not so natural. How can we change this up? Well, we have two options. We can use the verb take. We are taking a flight to Canada. Or you could just say, we're flying to Canada. It doesn't mean you're a bird and you are actually flying. This implies that you are going into the airplane. So you could say, we're taking a flight, or we're flying. Both of these are great options, and you can see how we use the verb to describe the action instead of a by phrase. Yes, you will occasionally hear this, but I want to empower you to use the most natural phrase possible. All right, let's go to our second grammar mistake that is commonly made by English learners. I have 33 years. Huh? No, when we're talking about age, we do not use have. Instead, we can say, I am 33 years old. I am. We use a be verb to talk about age. This is something that I commonly see in my students who speak a romantic language, like Brazilian Portuguese or Spanish or Italian or French. I often hear, I have 60 years. I have 55 years. But instead, we can have a little switch and just say am. I am 66 years old. I am 40 years old. Beautiful. Common grammar mistake number 3 is we were 5 people at the party. Huh? This sounds very clunky and confusing in English. It's kind of like there were 5 people in your head? What? We were 5 people? It's very confusing in English. So instead, it's much more natural and, in fact, just better grammar to say there were 5 people at the party. Or you could say there were 5 of us at the party. If you want to include yourself, the word us includes yourself. So you could say there were 5 of us at the party. Or there were 5 people at the party. Both of those are excellent, and they use the word there instead of we. We were 5 people? No, there were 5 people. Great. Grammar mistake number 4 is don't be scary. Huh? Is it Halloween? Are you dressed up like a vampire? Don't be scary, there's children here. No, this phrase means stop scaring people. You're dressed up as something really scary. Stop being scary. Don't be scary. No. Instead, a much more common phrase is don't be scared. I find that when my English students want to say don't be scared, they accidentally say don't be scary, which has a very different meaning. You're dressed up as something scary for Halloween. So when you're trying to comfort someone or soothe someone, you could say, don't be scared. I know that speaking English can be a little bit difficult, and maybe you feel nervous, but don't be scared. I'm nice. I hope that you can speak with me and feel comfortable. Don't be scared. Let's go on to some common vocabulary mistakes that my English students make. All of the words that I'm about to talk about are real English words, but they often get mixed up in conversations by English learners, and you know what? Sometimes English native speakers too. So let's start with the first common vocabulary mistake. Definitely, defiantly. Take a look at this sentence. I definitely do not want to jump into the cold water. I definitely do not want to jump into the cold water. But take a look at this sentence. He defiantly jumped into the cold water when I told him not to. He defiantly. Look at the spelling difference between these two words. For myself, I've found that as I'm writing, sometimes I accidentally write the word defiantly. What's this word mean? This means that you're kind of rebellious. I told him not to jump into the cold water, and do you know what he did? He looked at me and said, and he jumped into the cold water anyway. He did it defiantly. He was being rebellious. He defiantly jumped into the cold water even though I told him not to. Now I'm definitely upset. So make sure that when you're using these two words, whether it's spelling or speaking, we use them in the correct way. All right, let's go to our second vocabulary mistake. Dessert, desert. Ooh, when I was walking across the desert, all I could think about was eating some ice cream for dessert. First, let's take a quick look at the spelling differences between these two words. When we talk about dessert, something sweet and tasty, ice cream, cake, cookies, there are 2 S's. A good way to remember this is usually you want more dessert. So we have 2 S's. And when we're talking about the hot dry, sandy place, desert, there's only one S. That's the spelling differences, but let's talk about the emphasis and the pronunciation differences. I want to eat some dessert. I want to eat some dessert. There is emphasis on the second syllable. Can you say that with me? I want to eat some dessert. Dessert. But what if I decide to go on vacation to visit that dry, sandy place? We might say, I'm going to the desert. Desert. There's emphasis at the beginning. Desert. I'm going to the desert. Desert. Wonderful. So make sure that when you are spelling these words, they are correct, and when you're emphasizing them, it's also correct. I want to tell you a really silly story of when I was a kid. I always wanted to ask my parents for some dessert, but I knew that if I just asked them, Mom, can I have some dessert? They might say no. So I had to come up with a creative way to ask them for some more dessert. So me and my sister and my two neighbors who we always spent time with, I remember crawling down the hallway towards my parents, and we said, oh, it's so hot in the desert. Oh, it's so hot in the desert. I need some dessert. We were very silly. So we were trying to get them to laugh and have a little bit of fun with the difference between these two words so that they would give us dessert. All right, I hope this little story helps you to remember dessert and desert. Okay, let's go to our next common vocabulary mistake. Quiet and quite. This is another one that's easy to misspell when you're writing because they're quite similar. Quite similar. Let's take a look at this sentence. I was very quiet when I walked up the stairs. Take a look at the next sentence. He was quite noisy when he walked up the stairs. We have an opposite meaning here. I was very quiet. This means I didn't make much noise. I was very quiet when I walked up the stairs, or he was quite noisy. We use the word quite as an emphasis. He was quite noisy. He was very noisy when he walked up the stairs. He was quite noisy. Excellent. So make sure that when you're writing and when you're speaking, you use quiet and quite in the right way. Before we go on to some common pronunciation mistakes, let's go to our final vocabulary mistake that I commonly see with English learners, and maybe this is difficult for you too. Take a look at these two words, recipe and receipt. Let's talk about pronunciation first. Recipe. Usually, if there is an E at the end of a word, it's silent, like the previous word we talked about, quite. Quite. We don't say quitey, but in this word, we say the final E, recipe. Can you say it with me? Recipe. This is what you read that gives you instructions for cooking. I found a great recipe for making chocolate chip cookies. A recipe. But that second word, receipt. So many letters that are cut out. Receipt. It sounds like R-U. Receipt. Seat. So the P is cut out, and the E-I is just an E sound. Receipt. Receipt. This is the paper that you get when you go to the store. The cashier will hand you the receipt, and it's like a list of everything that you've purchased. So let's look at these sample sentences. I followed the recipe well. Why are my cookies so awful? The instructions for cooking, I followed the recipe well. Why are my cookies so awful? Or you can say, I checked the receipt and I bought salt instead of sugar. Let me tell you, if it says to put this much sugar in your cookies, you should not put this much salt in your cookies instead. They will be awful. So you can check your receipt from the store and see, I bought the wrong thing. Oh, well, I guess that's the answer. Let's go on to 3 common pronunciation mistakes that I often hear my English students make, but I want to make sure you can avoid them. The first one is pronunciation. It's true. This word is long, there's a lot going on, and I often hear my English students mix up this word in so many different ways. I have heard pronunciation. It's very mixed together in the middle because there's a lot of syllables. So what I would like to do is I want to break down this word. We're going to make it nice and clear and simple to understand and to say. Are you ready? Pronunciation. That T-I-O-N is going to sound like an SH. Shun. Let's try to speed it up a little bit. Pronunciation. How's your English pronunciation? I hope you can pronounce the word pronunciation correctly now. Have you ever been walking down the grocery store aisles and thought, I can't find what I'm looking for. What aisle is the sugar on? I need to buy sugar and not salt for my cookies next time. Well, this word, aisle, A-I-S-L-E. Why in the world is it spelled A-I-S-L-E? Good question, but it is pronounced I, like your eye, I-ul, aisle. So forget the A at the beginning, forget the S, and just say aisle. It kind of sounds like the contraction I will. I'll go to the store and walk down the aisle to look for some sugar. Aisle. This is the row in a store where you might find different things. So you can go down different aisles. And if you're in a store and you can't find a product and you ask someone, where's the sugar? They might say, go down aisle 8. Aisle 8. Excellent pronunciation. The final common English mistake, especially with pronunciation, that I often see my English students make is with this word. How do you say that word? Is it drawer? No. Instead, there's two different ways, they're very close, that we can pronounce this word. You might say, I put my clothes in the drawer with a J sound, or I put my clothes in the drawer, with a little bit more of a clear DR sound. Drawer. But for both of those words, the W is pretty much cut out. So don't let that confuse you and try to split that and say draw, like you're drawing a picture, and drawer. We don't say that. Instead, it's drawer or drawer. Both of those can be used commonly in daily conversation. So where do you put your clothes? I put them in the drawer. Excellent work. So how did you do? I hope that with this lesson, these mistakes will definitely get better for you. Don't forget to download the free PDF worksheet to go with today's lesson. You can review all of these common mistakes and their corrections, some sample sentences, and at the end of the worksheet, you can answer Vanessa's challenge question to help you use what you've learned today. So now I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite dessert? I would love to know. Is it chocolate cake, chocolate cookies, or maybe something that's only unique in your own country? Let me know in the comments, what's your favorite dessert? And I'll see you again next Friday for a new lesson here on my YouTube channel. Bye. The next step is to download the free PDF worksheet for this lesson. With this free PDF, you will master today's lesson and never forget what you have learned. You can be a confident English speaker. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for a free English lesson every Friday. Bye!